Joining us now is the president of the NAACP, Cornell William Brooks. He has spent most of the week in Baltimore. Mr. Brooks, the police union says these men are innocent. We know that this arrest was illegal. It was said that he had a switchblade. In fact, he had a pocket knife. So what happens now?
What happens now is we have to await this criminal process and see what happens. But I'll note here that the family of Freddie Gray, who lost their son, lost a brother, they have asked for justice. They have not rushed to judgment. So I would encourage the Fraternal Order of Police to do the same. This is a moment where we're seeking the truth, we're seeking accountability, and so to rush to judgment is not warranted.
You know, you were in Ferguson as well. There's
Yes.
a very different situation in Baltimore. You have a black mayor, you have a black police chief. Three of the officers who were charged were African Americans. What I'm wondering, are we at the point in America where we have to have black officials to deal with black people and white officials to deal with white people? It seems to me there's still a great divide here.
Certainly there's a great divide, but we need to be clear here. Racial profiling does not require that all the participants be white or black or anything else. The fact of the matter is this process of profiling communities and people has a disproportionate effect on African Americans. Freddie Gray was a young man who was detained, who was arrested, where there was no probable cause. We live in a country where African American young men are 25 times more likely to lose their lives at the hands of the police than their white counterparts. So the fact that the mayor is black and some of the defendants are black doesn't speak to the fact that we have a young man who had his vertebrae crushed, his spinal cord severed, and who's dead. And so the point being here is we have to focus on how do we change this modality and model of policing that is badly broken and ineffective. Racial profiling doesn't work.
So we start with racial profiling.
We start with the fact that we have a form of policing where people are suspected of minor offenses, subjected to overwhelmingly major uses of force, often lethal. And so that's what we have to focus on here. There's a federal Racial Profiling Act which has been introduced in the Senate and the House, which goes back to President George Bush and Attorney General John Ashcroft. It needs to move. And we're calling on the President and a bipartisan coalition in Congress to move on it. We need to end this practice because it's harming and hurting, brutalizing communities.
What else? Let's talk about it in a broader way. There does seem to be a difference in attitudes here.
Yes. I mean, when we have grown comfortable with the notion that African American people and poor people and young people can be brutalized at the hands of a minority fraction of the police, we have to get away from that. We have a community, Sandtown, Winchester. Let me note here, Baltimore is the hometown of the NAACP. Sandtown, Winchester, the community in which Freddie Gray died, is the neighborhood, the community, the block that Thurgood Marshall lived in. Our greatest hero and the first African American on the Supreme Court. This hits home. This community is beset by poverty. 1 out of every 4 citizens in Baltimore lives below the poverty line. 35% of the children. Chronic poverty in this community. So we have to look at housing, critical investments and workforce development and job training. We have to invest in these communities because being poor and under-resourced makes a community more vulnerable to profiling. And that's a conversation that we have to have and that Congress and the White House have to take action on.
Mr. Brooks, we want to thank you for joining us this
you.
morning, and we appreciate the work you did all last week in Baltimore.